I want to tell everyone a story, but before I do, I want to explain why. So, when we die, whatever you believe in, regardless, of an afterlife, on this mortal plane, we are just stories. We are the memories that live on in our friends, our family, and if we're lucky, we'll go down a few generations before we're completely forgotten, or just occasional, oh yeah, we had someone who did this. For most of us, it'll be a few generations if we're honest. But there are going to be a small, tiny subset of us who do something absolutely outstanding in our field, and will be in textbooks for centuries or millennia to come. But that is a tiny, tiny group. But that isn't the story I want to tell today. It isn't the story of someone who's outstanding in their field. I just want to tell the story of a human, a literal human story. Like all of us, he was born. 2 parents. Like many of us, he had at least a sibling that I'm aware of. He learned Dutch. He learned to play the mandolin and the guitar. He loved music. He had relationships that generally didn't work out long term. There are children, some of whom haven't met. I have a half sibling who I've never been in the same room with as far as I'm aware. That's fine. I'm not asking for sympathy or like hunt down my half sibling at all. It's part of this story. There were times when we were younger where we'd be disappointed. There'd be Christmas presents that didn't materialise, or were late, or were poorly thought out. There were some that were great. My first guitar, which was strung left-handed, because I am left-handed, when it was given to me. Overnight, I strung it back because I was like, well, it's going to be easier for you to teach if you can remember, like, you don't have to do a lot of mental gymnastics to think about the finger positions. So we had that moment, we had that shared experience. And like I say, music's been a big part of my life, so that was theoretically a basis for connection, even if it didn't exist much at a younger age. But skipping ahead many years, there's a lot of stuff that happened, but this isn't about the minutiae. This is about the broad strokes. There was a period where, for whatever reason, went to work abroad, got in a bit of trouble. Not going to go into detail, but came back a changed man. There is one particular story, not long, if I recall, after he'd been back, and I was justifiably upset about something. But as we know, if you've watched me for a while, you know that I have emotional issues, explained by various different things now, potentially. But I didn't respond in the right way. I reacted very instinctively, very emotionally, and I wasn't making a clear point as to why I was upset and perhaps how to fix it. But this person who, like I say, we never really had major connections when I was younger, understood what I was trying to get at and was on my side. While everyone else was like, oh, you're just being you, basically, these emotional outbursts. It was like, no, there's something here. Like, I get it, and yeah, absolutely, this is something that needs addressing. And from that moment, there was a stronger relationship. Now, when I say that, I mean by my standards. I am one of those people, and maybe this is an autism thing, I don't know, but if I don't hear about you, I'm going to assume you're probably fine. I might check up once, twice a year, maybe 4 times a year, maybe quarterly if you're lucky, maybe every couple of months if you're really lucky. If I'm in those periods where I'm like, I really should do better, you might hear from me quite a few times. But it wanes. I know it's not something I maintain, and that's something I do need to work on. I acknowledge that. But I did what I could, and I went to see him when I could, took a bus down. And when my hand was misbehaving, when I couldn't feel these 2 fingers, can't really play guitar very well like that, unless you do it open-tuned and everything like that, which I wasn't messing about with. But I knew he had a mandolin. Now, arthritis for many years had meant that he couldn't play it, but he had a mandolin. And yes, I'm not going to give him the credit on this one necessarily. My mum did suggest, why don't you give that as a gift? Because it's something that I can use, it's something, again, musical, that we can share that connection. And I always remember one thing he said, like, later down the line about that, which is, I did it backwards to him. He learned mandolin first and then went on towards the guitar. I learned guitar first and eventually came to mandolin. But it was easy for me to do. You could get away with the 2 fingers on a mandolin and still have stuff that isn't requiring weird tunings or doing things in a very wrong way to just make something like a chord work. So it was one of those things that we could connect with. It's why at the celebration of life that we did, I played my mandolin that I'd bought, because it was a bit snazzier, a bit nicer, and I wanted to keep that here safe. But that was it. I shared this life, these experiences, these memories. And another one that really cements this musical connection is one birthday I got him an iPod, like one of the older ones, very simple to use, and a little speaker dock. So I loaded it up with just a few songs that I knew he'd like at first, because I didn't want to put a load of stuff on that he might not like, and I've got to figure out how to get rid of it for it, or teach him how to get rid of it. And he got on with it. He enjoyed that. And then over time, I built up the library. I made a big folder of stuff like, right, here's artists I know you like. Do you like this one? Do you want this one on there? And went through it and put a load of stuff on one afternoon. I saw the man crying at some of the songs that he hasn't heard maybe for years. That really, sort of mean stuff or meant something to him. And that was a beautiful moment. It's a moment of vulnerability. And then he wasn't there anymore. The story ended. And we all had to carry on from that point. It's not even 2 years ago. But it's not something that obviously, takes over the entirety of my waking life. Grief is one of those things that, yes, eases over time. The model I like, or the analogy I like, is that you grow around it. It's like this ball. And when it first comes in, it's a huge ball. It takes up all the space that is you. But you're a growing person. No one is a finished product. So you grow around it. It becomes less... It's not filling the capacity anymore. But it's not that it's shrunk. You've increased around it. And occasionally you'll remember it's there. And it hurts. But it's not something, like I say, that takes over everything. But that's it. We are all stories. And this was his story. And yes, it's been very broad strokes, because I'm not going to give 78 years of history. I'm just giving the stuff that I remember, that I think about. The good and the bad. Because that's one trap we can fall into. When we try and remember those who have left us, we think, oh, they did this, they were great, they did all that. No, but they were human beings. By nature, by design, by whatever you want to call it, we are inherently flawed. No one is perfect, and that's an unreachable goal. All we can do is be the best us that we can be at this point, and strive to raise that bar higher as we go. That is literally all we can do. We are all stories. So that was his story. And I've not done this for any other purpose than I wanted to. It's not share this around, let my dad's story be known far and wide. Not that I don't care about that sounds really callous, but that's not the goal. This is there for me. I've looked back, I've thought about the core points of that story. It comes from a place of imperfection and comes through growth, which is all any of us can hope for. But I do hope that, if you sat through, you've got something out of this, and maybe it's helped you reconnect with the stories of those that you've known. And I'm not doing this as like a call to action, or engagement thing or anything like that, but if you want to share your stories of those you've known, these comments are there for that. I do normally police for, really awful stuff on every video, but on videos like this, I'm definitely more hot on it. So don't worry about people being awful if you share your story. Just do it. I will get rid of the awful people. I read every comment. It's not just being screamed into the void. And I do genuinely think this could be a nice little repository for those stories. But that's all I want to say on that. Obviously, as this is one of my update videos, I'm just going to do the housekeeping bit at the end. It feels a weird tonal shift. But I'm now, as of this going live, free of like my assignments and everything like that. Over this summer break, I've got nothing uni related, apart from maybe doing a bit of reading to prep, but that's going to happen every year. But I'm pretty free. I've got a few projects that I've got definitely cemented in. I've got a few things that people have asked for. I don't have the space to make a full themed month for some of these things, like I've done previously, kind of giving away what I'm trying to do here, but I do want to at least get some of these things done. So other than that, though, it is pretty loose. I've got a few basic concepts, but it's going to be just whatever comes up. And I hope you'll join me for that as usual. And until next time, as always, thank you for watching and take care.